It's time for a Silver League Terran versus Terran. Now what I got for you today is a match on Odyssey LE. Spawning in the northwest corner, playing with the blue SCVs, we have none other than Not So Cool Aid. Love that nickname. And his opponent spawning in a close position and actually already standing out in SCV, and judging by the production tab, the red Terran right here is not producing anything. He goes by the nickname of Mini Error. And he has got a bit of a trick up his sleeve. Judging by the amount of minerals that he's already got, I think that he's planning on building up a command center on the other side of the map. Maybe going for that gold base, but it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. It looks like he is headed for his opponent's natural. Mini Error, what are you planning on doing? Indeed, he's building up the command center on the other side of the map as his very first building. I actually think that judging by this setup, I don't know, we haven't seen this in quite some time, but I'm kind of thinking here, judging by this setup, that it may potentially be a Planetary Fortress rush. He's gonna have to add on the gases next. He's gonna need gas very soon, at the very least a single refinery. It's gonna be a necessity, and he does add on one, and actually the second refinery right there as well. Mini Error, if he adds on like a engineering bay, this has to be a Planetary Fortress rush, which is arguably the most cheesy strategy that is also reasonably easy to counter. And there he goes. Yes, he is planning on finishing up this command center, lifting it up, landing it inside of his opponent's main base, morph it into a Planetary Fortress, because of course Planetary Fortresses can't fly, and then just simply murder his opponent. And Not So Cool Aid, he scouted that just now. I don't know exactly what he has got in store right here. He's making a bit of a loop around, but he should have spotted that the command center was on the low ground right there. He's following this up right now with a Reaper, but normally, right, finishing up this command center is the tricky part. But Mini Error, sending it as early as he did, and even though his opponent ended up scouting it, he did not fight that SCV that was building the command center up. Mini Error did now finish up that expansion, and I think he has to be lifting it up soon. There's not a chance that he actually plans on mining right here, right? And there he goes. He loaded up the SCV, and he is gonna land it inside of his opponent's main base. There is no way that this works, right? Not So Cool Aid, however, is currently on full autopilot. He's got that second barracks down. He's also building up a factory right now, but he is engaging his opponent. He's not actually dealing with the threat at hand right now. And if this thing finishes up, and it may very well happen, I mean, a command center that's getting repaired by an SCV, it stays alive for a very long amount of time. Orbital commands, Planetary Fortresses rather, they've got a ton of armor and you know, HP in general. A single Marine is not gonna cut it, and so far, while the Terran player in blue is a little bit confused about what's going on, he didn't end up sending that Reaper back home. He is gonna be in quite a bit of trouble because the Planetary Fortress is finishing up. Mini Error is indeed opening up with a proxy command center. He lifted it up into the main base, and he is gonna finish it up. Now, the interesting part is that after this finishes up, right, and it's gonna do a lot of damage. It deals splash damage. It's definitely gonna finish right now. You can build SCVs to continue repairing this thing. Look at that splash damage. It deals a lot. It deals a lot right now, and it's gonna be able to get rid of all of these units with relative ease. Even target firing down the individual units right there. I would love to see him go after these Marines right there. Look at that. Ooh, yep, no, that one's burning down as well, and I think that is gonna be a bit of an issue right now. Now, Mini Error so far not following this up with an SCV. I would love to see him follow it up with an SCV, just so he could actually, you know, repair up this Planetary Fortress. His opponent is trying to do, you know, as much damage as he can. You can see the very slow turning right there, but Mini Error is dealing an awful lot of damage with just a single building inside of his opponent's main base. I can't believe he actually just managed to pull that one off. Another Marine right there does end up getting killed. The factory is now currently also being target fired down, but I think that, you know, Mini Error will probably end up losing this thing eventually. He's already picked up 18 kills though. He already picked up 18 kills. There we go. Finally, we do see an SCV coming out as well. He's still target firing down that factory. He's definitely going to have to try and kill that Cyclone, because they deal an awful lot of damage to buildings. Now, no repair here whatsoever from Not So Cool Aid. He's literally just rallying units, hoping that this thing starts burning down at some point. And it does look like while the flames are seeing, or are spotting right now, 22 kills is still a lot, and the SCV is gonna be able to repair this. So while this is all going on, by the way, Mini Error at home is just simply building up more and more economy. He started up his Stimpak upgrade. There's a single enemy SCV inside of his main base as well that's sort of spotting roughly what's going on, but he is just continuing onwards with the macro aspect of this game as well. And Mini Error, I mean, he's trying his very best. He's recognized that he needs that factory, so he's pulling SCVs, and more units do get killed. I can't believe that this actually is working as well as it did. After the command center went up in that natural, it actually did so much more work than I had anticipated right there. Planetary Fortress rushes, I mean, if that command center ends up finishing, right, then I mean, really the counter is just simply to shut down the SCV that's building it. But if it ends up finishing, it deals so much damage. I think that one got roughly 30 kills right there in total, which is a very solid amount. Look at that. 4 SCVs killed, 1 Planetary Fortress killed, in return for 12 SCVs, a Reaper, 2 Cyclones, and 13 Marines as well as a factory. Look at those resource differences. That is insane. And Mini Error in this very awkward early game opener right here, and I'm secretly hoping that he is gonna inspire a couple of other Terran players to do something wonky like this as well, is indeed securing a nice little lead. Now, of course, this is going to be a Silver League match, right? That does mean that this is going to be a replay submitted by viewers. If you've got a crazy match yourself as well, go ahead and send it over to replays@LowkoTV. I'm casting only the best of the best that Modluses and Nuke are indeed selecting for me. So, you know, I'm quite excited to see exactly how this one is indeed gonna work out. Because while Mini Error is at a huge advantage right now, right? With a freaking Planetary Fortress rush, I mean, he's not following it up with an Orbital Command just yet. He's getting a very late expansion here. And all things considered, if there is a league where comebacks are possible, it is most definitely Silver League. And not so cool, I mean, he's actually not looking all too terrible just yet either. I mean, the fact of the matter is that he's got mules, right? And mules, they mine for a lot of resources. The Terran player in red could have had the same exact units out as well, but as it is right now, none of that happening. And while he is morphing the orbital in, I think that he's lost out on a couple hundred minerals right there at the very least. Another barracks does get built right now. We also see that tech lab going down on the factory. So he's planning to go into, you know, some siege tanks here very shortly. I would love to see a follow-up right now with medevacs as well, because medevacs are still very good. But here's the thing, Mini Error, he's already finished up Stimpak. He's got +1 attack done on these units as well. He can actually do a nice little push here, because what is his opponent really going to be able to deal, you know, what is his opponent really going to be able to do? There are a couple of Widow Mines out, right? And while you can see the little puddle right there on the ground, if you are the red Terran player, you do have to pay very close attention to what precisely is going on. On top of that, Stimpak is just about to finish up here on the other side of the map as well. But the real issue here for Not So Cool 8 is that he doesn't have a second command center just yet. I would love to see him add on another command center here very shortly, because he's got the minerals for it, or he had the minerals for it just a second ago. I think he really needs to try and just simply, you know, get those expansions out ASAP. Now, Not So Cool 8 is currently sending all of the units in that medevac across the map. I think that he's relying kind of on these Widow Mines to deal some damage, but at this point, I don't think he actually realizes that his opponent is literally right outside of his front door. It doesn't really matter though, because the opponent's units are indeed gonna walk straight into the middle of those Widow Mines, and a lot of damage is being done. Marines on the high ground, of course, very, very good. They're going to be able to deal quite a bit of damage here. But even without Stimpak, which did just finish up, every single last of these Marine Marauders do get picked up. Double scans going down, confirming that indeed something weird was going up on that main base. But it doesn't really matter, because Not So Cool 8 is dropping on the other side of the map as well. And at this point, there are very little units here available for a red Terran to try and defend against this, as so many workers get picked off with relative ease. There is going to be a single siege tank out. That siege tank should be able to shell away at that Cyclone in particular. There we go. It does indeed fall into pieces, drops them down to the seashells right there at the third base. She sells seashells by the seashore. Oh, I nailed it. Seashells, but no, I tried it second time around. That was a, okay, hold on, let me try it once more. She sells seashells by the seashore. She sells by the seashore. I tried, okay, I tried. Anyway, the third command, or rather the second command center right there from Not So Cool 8 does indeed get built right there eventually, right? So he's going to be able to start up a little bit more mining here. He's got a few SCVs inside of the main. It's really not that much. He's mostly just mining gas at this point, which is a bit of an interesting choice as well. I would love to actually just see him pull off a bunch of these SCVs out of the gas geyser and focus on some Marines instead, just because he's going to really need that kind of unit if he wants to hold his next push. Because even though Mini Error, right, he's lost a lot of stuff in this game, he is still looking rather solid here. The thing is, of course, that Not So Cool has still got a lot of time here on his hands. I mean, there's no chance that he's really gonna die here anytime soon. Look at the amount of defensive units that he's got right now. The second command center, however, does not get spotted. Widow Mines, alright, also not spotted yet, so that siege tank took a lot of damage right there. And apparently it's immediately gonna unsiege and get on out of there once more to only siege up about a, about a second or so later, or like a mile or so back, or a meter or so back, not that far. But anyway, regardless, Not So Cool is gonna be able to shell away at these tanks easily, and that high ground advantage is very nice. I think he's gonna get 2 full siege tanks for his troubles without a single unit lost. Now another bunch of Marines indeed will end up taking some damage. Widow Mine still got a hit off. Huge stim right there from Not So Cool, but every single last one of these opposing red units once again got picked off. And even though Not So Cool didn't really expand any earlier in this game, he has indeed secured a nice little expansion there. And actually, for the first time, he's now also got a solid supply lead. Or actually, no. Actually, he's had the supply lead for the majority of this game. Until, the Planetary ended up doing as much damage as it did right there. Now, Mini Error currently doesn't really have all that many defensive units out. I mean, he's got 4 Marines and a single Marauder, and indeed, I actually quite like the idea right now of going for that Planetary on the low ground. I mean, if you're gonna have to defend against an imminent push here, you may as well just, secure your natural. I mean, in the end, this game is probably gonna be decided with mostly, probably one massive battle that will happen in about a minute or two from now. Now, as it is at this point in the game, right, even though Not So Cool is slightly ahead, one supply ahead right now in the game, and actually Mini Error just did take that advantage as well. The thing is that Not So Cool only has got 15 SCVs. He's gonna be able to drop 2 mules at once, so that is quite nice, but he's up against 29 workers from his opponent, and that does mean that the longer that this game goes on, the more difficult this will also become here for the blue Terran player. I mean, the longer that this goes on, right, the bigger his disadvantage will become. As long as Mini Error just simply keeps on spending his money, is going to be in a great position. Now, there was just a massive pickup right there with 3 medevacs. I highly doubt that he actually wants to go ahead and make a push for it, though, because Not So Cool is looking like he wants to try and do a bunch of damage. There's 2 Liberators out right there. They're very good at, of course, forcing these siege tanks to unsiege. I would actually love to see like a missile turret or so right in between these bunkers, or maybe right next to the siege tank at the very least, to prevent these Liberators from really dealing a whole lot of damage. There we go. Look at that. Mini Error making the correct choice right at this point in the game, but still, Not So Cool. He's got a decent amount of stuff, but I'm starting to get a little bit worried for this. I would also love to see 2 Vikings being added on right now for Mini Error, just to prevent this from really dealing as much damage as it can. More missile turrets actually going down right now. A second one, or actually there was a first one queued up right there with a second one also ready to get started. But I think that Not So Cool is just simply going to try and slow push his opponent, which is quite a smart choice. If your opponent doesn't have any Vikings out, it's a very difficult thing to stop right now. Now, Mini Error can just simply land at the 3rd base. That's always going to be a decent option. And it does look like indeed it is going to be forced back here for at least just a little while. Siege Tank is now also in range of that bunker without actually needing that vision right there, because the Liberator is already providing that. He doesn't need to continuously scan like he was doing earlier. And at this point, while Not So Cool is heavily flooding minerals and gas already, I mean, this is a bit of a tense situation to be in right now for both of these players. So it's pretty tricky to keep on producing as well. He is doing he's doing a really good job here at preventing his opponent from really moving out. Now that siege tank is gonna hurt. I think it's no manual target firing right there on these siege tanks. So that actually on those 2 siege tanks right there. So they did get a couple of shells off right there at the bunkers. It looks like he's had enough, however, and there's a massive shove forward right now with the Marines as well as the Marauders. The thing, of course, is that there are, a lot of defensive units there, as well as that Planetary Fortress. On top of that, there's a bunch of missile turrets. They'll be able to shut this down with relative ease. And all things considered, while this was a nice attempt right there by Not So Cool 8, all of a sudden he finds himself at only 26 supply versus 63 from his opponent. And even though Mini Error went for a very interesting, aggressive push with a Planetary Fortress, the Planetary in the natural just now picked up an additional 11 kills as well. And he's really, he's not only using the Planetary offensively, he's also using it defensively, which is such an interesting concept. You don't really see it very much at the highest level of play, because those guys just simply control so very well. But if you are aren't, like, you know, if you aren't as confident in your control and in your micro, making a bunch of planetaries is definitely not a terrible way to go. Even though mules are very valuable, as long as you keep your money low and you don't die, you probably are going to be capable of outmining your opponent eventually anyway. And at this point, I mean, not so cool. He's got a lot of mining happening here, right? Look at these beautiful yellow cars. They're returning a ton of resources, but still, the longer that this goes on, once again, he just simply doesn't have the amount of workers that his opponent has. The longer that this goes on, he just simply won't have the resources to properly afford all of that. Another barracks does get queued up right there, so not so cool. Is going to try his very best to continue on with this production. He's also getting himself an upgrade. He's going up to that armory as well, so he can start researching some upgrades right there for his siege tanks. But all things considered, I really would love to see a bigger focus really here from both of the players really on just simply more and more workers. Neither of them have got a very impressive amount here, but the one in red has got a lot more income just simply because he does have the upper hand when it comes to the SCV count. +2 now also does start here for Mini Error, trying his very best here while hitting that supply block. Command center on the low ground will finish up here in about a half minute or so from now, so I think that will solve his supply block issues. But 2 medevacs are loaded up, and I think that Mini Error is going to try and see if he can potentially test the waters. A Liberator now also trying to make his way towards that main base, it looks like. Not a whole lot of mining happening there anymore, as we are 16 minutes into it, and that oftentimes does mean indeed that he's been supply blocked for so very long, by the way. But anyway, that usually does mean that the main base will indeed be running low on resources. And while Not So Cool has got the correct idea, I feel like this Liberator is about a good like 10 minutes or so late. Scan going down right there in the natural of the blue Terran player. One in the main going up right now as well. That does mean that Mini Error, he doesn't have any siege tanks in these medevacs. So at the very least, that is not going to be much of a concern right there for Not So Cool, but he's still going to have to respond to this. Mini Error is looking for a spot to try and drop in, and that's exactly what he's found right here. Siege tank will have to be positioned properly if he wants to properly deal with all of this as well. And actually, as long as he's dealing... What? Ooh, that all army hotkey move right there to try and somehow some way deal with this. Bit of a weird push right there by these blue marines. Look at that. They were running up and down that ramp for quite some time here. But all things considered, and apparently Not So Cool once again got that Liberator moving across the map. All things considered, that was reasonable defense right here, but it brought a bunch more time right here for Mini Error. It brought him closer to what could potentially be a victory, as he is just simply mining a lot more stuff. And on top of that, he's doing a decent job right now at spending the majority of his resources. Even though both players are flooding tons of gas, you don't need that much gas in Terran versus Terran in general. Both players are floating tons of gas. Mini Error has just simply got a lot more stuff. It's 66 army supply versus 40. However, there are Liberators out right now. Siege tanks and Marines are joining this party as well, and a slow push can still deal a lot of damage. Not So Cool is going to be able to leapfrog these units very nicely, and on top of that, he's got that high ground advantage, right? He's got that air dominance as well, so that means that he can indeed use these units to their maximal efficiency. Siege tanks, of course, can shoot further than they can see, and you need that high ground vision as well as the air advantage, the air dominance to really properly deal with this. And actually, even though Not So Cool doesn't have a lot of army, right? He doesn't have a huge amount of army. If he is, in a position that he's in right now and he can just simply slow push his way to the victory, there is always a chance that he can still obtain it. And there we go. Very nice pickup right there. We'll be able to deal a little bit of damage right there and slowly push his opponent apart. Siege tanks are gonna need some vision over here as well. We'd love to see a little bit of slow pushing right here by these Liberators too. One unsieging, forcing that siege tank of his opponent to be unsieged as well. He could do a lot of damage here just by simply using the siege tanks and the Liberators to his advantage. Now, there are 2 full medevacs that have been snuck out right now by Mini Error, and this is really well done. Whenever you are being slow pushed like this, like the blue Terran player is doing right now, it also means that the push is not going to happen very quickly. I mean, right? It's a slow push. It means that slowly he will be inching forward, and at the same time, all of the opposing blue Terran units are currently across the map. There's very little available right now for the defense, and this drop can do a lot of damage. At the same time, the Marines are indeed now shoving forward, trying to make the best of a bad situation. situation, and while Not So Cool definitely did get the upper hand right there, he did also lose his siege tanks, which means that his slow push did get stagnant or staggered at the very least a little bit until these siege tanks are dealt with. At the same time, across the map, we see two full energy medevacs. They're going to be able to, you know, heal up these Marines and Marauders very, very nicely, and I think that Not So Cool is probably better off if he makes a big push inside of the main base right now. He's once again trying to inch forward with his Liberator, doing as much damage as he can, but I think that mini-era just simply has got a little bit too much stuff. Opening up with that Planetary Fortress, trying to get as much value out of that as he could, and he most definitely did get a lot of value. I mean, the Planetary Fortress right here in the natural, also preventing the Marines from pushing onwards right now. And while mini-era did not play a very orthodox strategy, he's come up with a way of obtaining the victory anyway. I'm not gonna lie, I like it a lot. I thought that was a really nice way of playing, and even though both of these players were flooding resources for days, mini-era turned out to be a little bit stronger than his opponent. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button down below, and if you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get a notification as soon as I upload more. And other than that, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright? And I will see you in the next one.